sometimes, you really put your head down and you think, maybe this is one of those times where I need to stop talking about it and just start being about it. Somebody needs to do this. There's a lot of positive things going on in the magazine. There's a lot of momentum right now. It just seems like a good time to get in there and see what I can do to help.
My next guest is from Sugar Grove, Arkansas. He's a 1999 J.D. Leftwich High School graduate in Magazine, Arkansas. He went on to enlist in the U.S. Navy as a Navy Corpsman, serving until 2007. Once back home in Arkansas, he studied biology at UAFS. He has worked and volunteered in various coaching and mentorship programs. This year, he has helped introduce the Watchdogs Program in the Magazine School District, which helps provide positive male role models for students. Since 2015, he's been working with the Logan County Sheriff's Department, where he currently serves as Chief Deputy. He is now running for the office of Mayor of the City of Magazine. Please welcome Josh Scott.
Welcome to the Local Insider Podcast, the show about everyday people who make a big difference.
The Local Insider Show is brought to you in part by My Patriot Supply. You don't need to live in the heart of a hurricane zone or along an active fault line to be serious about emergency preparedness. If we've learned anything from both historical and recent events, crises can come in all shapes and sizes, and they can come at any time, even overnight. Whether you're experiencing the effects of long-term illness, an accident, job loss, or even widespread threats like terrorist attacks, economic collapse, or an outbreak of disease, you can tackle what's next in confidence with My Patriot Supply storable foods. No matter what your emergency may look like, you won't have to worry about where you're getting your next meal. And as far as your survival is concerned, there's nothing more important than that. Already our foods and packaging undergo regular, rigorous testing to ensure they exceed industry standards for safety, quality, and shelf life. Ready Hour also conducts regular analytical, microbial, and oxygen level inspections, as well as sensory testing of raw materials and finished goods in a food testing lab. Don't delay, prepare today. When an emergency is on the way, My Patriot Supply receives a rush of orders that slows their ability to ship as quickly as usual from their warehouses across the country. Go to localinsidershow.com/emergency food to order your 2-week or 4-week supply of storable food.
Josh Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I've recently heard that you have put your name in the hat to become the mayor for Magazine. Can you tell me a little bit how that you arrived at that decision and what you plan to do going forward?
Yeah, so it's not a great story. What I spent about 2 years thinking, hey, we need to start thinking of somebody, that can come in, somebody with some energy. They don't have to be a certain age, but in my mind I was thinking a little younger, whatever that means, I don't really know, but just mainly energy, and so picked out a handful of people, started talking to them, hey, what do you think? And they're like, maybe I will. I'll let you know. Let me think about it. Let me talk to my wife. That's the big deal. That's the hard part right there.
Yeah.
But I just kept striking out. It was, I can't because of this. I can't because of this. And sometimes I say things, especially to my kids. And like one of the things I say all the time is, sometimes you got to quit talking about it and start being about it. And it comes back and haunts me sometimes because they call me on it, and I'm pretty stretched out. I mean, there's a lot of things that I get involved in. I get a little over involved. That's, one of the big things that I've learned about myself. And one of the things my wife always points out to me, but that's sort of how I got here. Strike out, maybe I should do this. I do feel like I have the energy. I do have a lot of things going on. I've never done this before, so I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know, I'm not really sure what to expect, but I know I have the energy for it. I know I have the passion for it, and, that's kind of how I got here.
Perfect. Yeah. I like that. Stop talking about it and start being about it. Is that what
pretty much? Yeah. I mean, and we talked a little bit before we came on, and I pointed out a few things that me and my family have done. I'm like, well, we didn't really stepped off on that yet. We just sort of dabble with it, and, you don't want that reputation that all you do is just talk. So
yeah,
sometimes, you really put your head down and you think, maybe this is one of those times where I need to stop talking about it and just start being about it. Somebody needs to do this. There's a lot of positive things going on in the magazine. There's a lot of momentum right now.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like a good time to get in there and see what I can do to help.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of youth that are stepping up in magazine. Of course, there's more business now than there was whenever I was growing up. There is newer business there, and I just heard recently that you had a young volunteer that stepped up and wanted to be part of the city council and was just sworn in.
Yeah, and that's right. And what that's great in itself. And there was also other people out there, other young folks with energy that live in town that had come and, we just crossed paths somewhere that, said, hey, what do you know about city council? How do you get on it? What's it about? What do you do? Of course, I encourage them to come down and attend a meeting. And I always mention that, Booneville does a live stream of theirs. And so that's a good way to just see how it flows and see what it's about. But, when I started paying attention, there were 2 vacant seats. And so one of the things I thought early on was, you don't want that. You want all the seats filled up. You need everybody's opinion. You need everybody's help. You need everybody's mind.
Right.
Yeah. Exciting.
Yeah. It takes everybody. I look at, places like Subiaco and their city council, and it worries me, but, you said there was a couple vacancies. That's what we don't want to get is where you have, I don't remember how many seats they have, like 7 or something. And they have like 2 people or something.
Over in Subi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Subi or Scranton. I can't remember.
Well, I do know enough to be able to say Subiaco was short the last time I checked.
Mm-hmm. So what's your story? Are you from magazine or?
Yeah, that's hard to answer. I'll do my best. A lot of people think of me as, when they see me, they tell me they just think magazine. They think magazine or think magazine football. And I appreciate that. It's how I want to be seen. But, I like to say I'm from Sugar Grove. My wife always kids with me and, it's something I'm very proud of, but I'm actually from south of Sugar Grove. So, all my life, especially my military life, guys would be from big cities and, they'd claim to be from their area codes or their zip codes and hey, where are you from? And, I'd always point out, I'm from the woods, I'm not from a town, and it was kind of a joke, but it was kind of true too, but something I'm really proud of, so from that area, kind of between, we lived in a couple of different places. I grew up, spent a lot of time with my grandparents and, they lived out by Jack Creek at one time. And then they also lived out on County Line Road, almost in Yale County. So that's sort of, where my first memories come from. And then, started school here in Booneville. And then the way I like to say it is got really lucky. My mom decided to move closer to magazine inside the district, and I just ended up at magazine schools, and my life kind of changed. I met people that, it's almost a little bit emotional to talk about just because when I look back and think, what the big impacts on my life were early, I think it was meeting people, teachers, coaches, at magazine that, just seemed to care about me. And so, that's sort of how I got to magazine.
Sure. So how long have you lived in magazine now?
I would say most of my life.
Okay.
You definitely could say most of my life.
So what does a typical day look like in your walk? I know you work for the Logan County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah. I'm the chief deputy at the sheriff's office, and I always say, once you get in that position, you do a little bit less law enforcement, and it's a little bit more about the team, taking care of the team, hiring, sit on a lot of boards there, go to a lot of meetings, but I don't know if I could say typical.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could give you a typical day. There's been a lot going on, a lot of good things, some not so good things, but not sure I can answer that question.
Sure. Yeah. It definitely, wouldn't be a typical day. And I don't guess there is a typical day in law enforcement. If there is, then you're probably not doing your job.
Yeah. It's, it's part of the draw to the job is, every day's different.
So why did you decide to become mayor? I know you said you want to stop talking about it and more be about it, but.
Yeah, I think, I've tried to answer this question a few times and, probably, I think people probably hear what, non-traditional type answers from me, but it's more about just seeing a need and feeling like, maybe that's something I can do.
Be the change you want to see.
Yeah. And talk to some people. Hey, what does a mayor do? What does the city need from a mayor? How much time, is this going to take? And, you can do it. Well, what is it? I think you'd be great at it. Well, thank you. But, how much time does the city need? And a lot of questions that I haven't really gotten answers to, I understand it's a part-time job, but it's kind of like, I think of it in same terms of law enforcement. I mean, you come home and you clock out, so to speak, but that doesn't mean people aren't calling you. That doesn't mean you're not listening to the radio because something's going on and you need to listen to make sure, if you need to come out and help or, I don't think it's going to be a part-time job, so to speak, but sure. I live there in town and, I don't enjoy free time or idle time too much. So, but I just honestly just seen a need, feel like it's something that I have the energy, to get out there and at least put my best foot forward and say, mm-hmm. Hey, what do we need to do? And, certainly feel like I've learned a lot, since I've decided, hey, maybe I'll do this, start talking to people, asking questions. I feel like I've learned a lot. Still feel like I have a lot to learn, in that world, so to speak, but I'm anxious to, get in there and give it a try, assuming I win.
So what are the main challenges you foresee in that role as mayor?
If you're going to have a team, you have to be able to get along. Doesn't mean you have to like each other.
Right.
As much as you like your best friend, but you got to like each other enough to show up and, talk to each other. And I think the biggest challenge that I see is trying to get our city and then our business owners and our school sort of just back, either back or just maybe for the first time kind of, on the same page, working together, understanding each other and saying, hey, what can we do, for you? If we can get, all aspects sort of thinking that way, I think we can accomplish a lot.
I understand you play a pretty big role in the sports and Little League and stuff like that. I know historically you've coached and I think are you part of the team that live streams the football games or have?
Yeah, I have done a lot of different things. I've done everything from volunteer coach to student coach to, got involved in the Little League around that time, just as a coach, then ended up, hey, the Little League, kind of had a need for somebody to take over. So took over the Little League and kind of ran that whole thing. And then I didn't really get out of touch with the high school team, but just that took a lot of my time and energy dealing with Little League and all the things that go on there. So, took a little more of a backseat at that time, and then, passed that on and kind of came back to, doing a little bit more with the high school team, junior high team, 7th grade team. And I think I started filming at some point, we were watching some game film and it was a little choppy.
Sure.
And I'm like, hey, let's make sure we get that right. So ended up filming and then, COVID came around and, we had a lot of people that were like, well, I'm not going to the game. And there's no radio broadcast at that time. There's really no way to keep up with it other than just social media posts and stuff. So just thought, hey, I'm already filming, maybe I can figure out how to live stream. So started a live stream. Live stream went really good. Definitely was something that, got a lot of compliments about. It wasn't, great quality or anything like that. There was no audio. But grandparents mainly, and parents and extended family could still keep up with the game. And we were having a lot of success during that time. So it was a time that, there was a little bit of extra excitement, a few more people paying attention and want to know what was going on. So, and then we just kind of, finally we came out of COVID. And so it was, we're going to keep doing this or we're going to do something else. And the school was trying to decide if they wanted to go to, and I'll probably butcher this, but like the NHFS or something like that. They wanted, started thinking about maybe switching to some ball tracking cameras that they provide and a subscription, that you could buy if you wanted to watch, and it would be good quality and good cameras. And, they asked me what I thought, and I said, hey, certainly think whatever you guys want to do is perfectly fine with me. I don't mind not live streaming at this point. People can come out, and watch the game. And so we did that last year, just kind of sit back and enjoyed the games. And, of course there's a lot that goes into game day as you all in Booneville here know.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm involved in setting up things at the field, making sure the press box is up and running. If there's anything that needs to be done there, the run out tunnel, things like that. This year we did start an internet, radio broadcast. We didn't start the channel, so to speak, but I was just approached by, someone, with,
Sports Brew?
Sports Brew. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of the old sporting news.
Sure.
My mind's a little bit on fantasy football right now. I didn't think about it when we set this up, and I'm in a pretty competitive matchup this week, but with Glen Parrish. Anyways, they asked me, hey, we got Jonathan Gibson who's wanting to do the play-by-play for us, and he needs a color guy, and I was like, hey, let's do it. So
yeah.
So now I'm getting to do the radio, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, Jonathan's really, really in his realm, so to speak, there, and just really comfortable and does a great job. It's fun to be up there with him. And then, that's where I was when I text you back, about this. So sort of what I'm doing right now with the football team.
Jonathan, he came from, he was a sports writer, was he not?
Yeah. Jonathan has a pretty, he's done a lot in the media.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think he's pretty well known for that. I think he's worked with, Times Record. I think he's wrote for the Democrat Gazette. I remember I was student coaching at Magazine. It was like in maybe 04 or 05 the first time I met him, and we had a running back there that year named Jason Bonner, and Jason had hit 1,000 yards rushing in the 5th game of the season. And so word got out, and Jonathan showed up and did this big story. And then, we've sort of reconnected through some of this magazine stuff now that he's back around Magazine. And he said the other day, he said, hey, I'd forgotten about that. I didn't realize that's where we first met. I had not forgotten about it because, it was a big story and, something I was really proud of for Jason. But yeah, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
had a laugh about it and said, yeah, I didn't forget you.
So, what are your plans for growth in Magazine as mayor?
When I finally decided, hey, yeah, I am gonna try to do this, that's when I really sat down and started, got the notebook out and said, hey, I've got to write some things down. I've had plenty of people talking to me about this already. I don't want some of these ideas or thoughts to get away. But I think the idea for growth is really, I won't say I don't have one, but it's really kind of secondary. The biggest thing that I want to do is take care of what we got.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I want to try to bring people together. Something I've thought about in regard to the mayor job a lot is there's a lot of really, really good things going on in Booneville. And you look around and like a lot of the people behind some of those things or involved in some of those things are magazine people.
Mm-hmm.
You've had Dustin Garrett on this show, somebody I went to high school with and have known all my life, have a ton of respect for, great guy, doing a lot of great things here. But then, there's other people. I think your last guest, was somebody that, that I knew, from Magazine and
Will Beeson,
and yeah, has a great reputation there. And, I could just go on and on.
Sure.
But there's a lot of folks, and that's great because I always say anything good that's happening in Booneville is always good for Magazine.
Sure.
We're so closely connected and interconnected with families and teachers and coaches and things like that. So I'm not necessarily focused on growth. I'm just focused on trying to see what resources we have. I want to take care of little things that I see that need attention, like the park.
Sure. So relay the foundation.
Yeah.
That needs to be.
Yeah. Sort of just get back to, what's our beautification committee doing? Or do we still have that group together? There's a ton of groups like that around town. We have a pretty proud, veterans group, there in Magazine that has a post that's, I think they said it was 109 years old or,
Mm-hmm.
it's over 100 years old. And
Yeah, I had Jared on the show.
you had Jared on the show. I remember that. And, they're trying to be more active. And so I think what, Magazine really needs is somebody that can sort of just organize all that and
Sure.
just say, hey, here's what's going on here in this world. Here's what's going on in that world. I, talk to a lot of people every day, partly because of my job and, partly just being out in the community. It was a Little League football game yesterday, and I'm talking to, Michael Springer, who does a lot, constantly thinking of ways to improve things, and also on the school board. And, it almost seems like, I joke around and say I get over involved and have too many hats to wear, but sometimes it feels like it's all interconnected, so really what I think is, as I said, magazine needs somebody to come in, just sort of get everybody on the same page, make sure that communication is out there, that everything going on is out there and understood, and start trying to, I don't want to say, like I said earlier, I don't know what relationships have been like in the past. I just know what I hear, so I don't know exactly what's true, but what can we do to fix relationships? What can we do to get on the same page? What can we do to get people who have interest in magazine that are out in the world doing great things to do something in magazine? They're already out there doing things, so hopefully that answers the question.
Oh yeah, perfectly. And you touched on something that, that I would like to talk about. The generation before me, not necessarily my generation, because there was not really any animosity, but the generation, my uncle's generation. I was raised by my grandparents, so my uncles and aunts were like my brothers and sisters. There was like an us versus them mentality between magazine and Booneville. It seemed like there was like a rift there. It seems like that's gone now. It seems like we're all willing to work together because we know that it's us as like a county versus, this overarching, whether it be the economy or COVID or whatever it is. It seems like we've kind of pulled together to lift each other up. And I think that's important, that, we may be, just down the road from each other, but like you said, what benefits one, we are in a symbiotic relationship, will ultimately benefit us all.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, you still find some people, a generation or two back that, and it's kind of cool. You listen to both sides and you hear some of the things that happened that made that. But I think what happened is it become less of sort of a rivalry and just especially over the last 20 to 25 years, just that interconnected thing that I'm talking about. You have your wife teaches at magazine, the husband's a coach in Booneville or a cop in Booneville or vice versa. And I mean, I could just go on and on and on giving you examples. We've grown closer together, in distance. So I think the big thing is just, rivalries can be fun, but you don't want it to stand in the way of progress.
Certainly. And
so I think, I get excited a lot talking about Logan County in general, honestly, because one of the things that I'm really fortunate to do, in my day job is I do get to be around, just about anybody that's doing anything in Logan County. I get to be around, whether that's a coffee and donuts at, some new business in Paris or Booneville or, a football game in Paris or Booneville or magazine or, things of that nature. You just sort of get to listen to people. And, I wasn't that familiar with North Logan County or Paris before I started working at the sheriff's office. We didn't really touch on it, but as I said, I'm from south of Sugar Grove. I'm from a family of outlaws. I like to joke around. So, never really thought about a career in law enforcement or anything like that. But sometimes, and it seems like, another joke that I like to throw around is I just wake up every day and stumble around. That's what I tell people. And, but I just get lucky every day, and, joined the Navy out of high school and, fell into a job of a Navy hospital corpsman. And like looking back now, it's a prestigious job that everybody wants. My youngest son, my middle child, he wants to be a corpsman so bad right now that he can taste it, but it's oversaturated. Everybody else wants to do it too. So it's very competitive. So you got to go to work. You can't just say, hey, they don't want me. You got to go to work. And I won't get off on that. That's some of the conversations he and I have, but, got lucky and, fell into that. And
for those who don't know, what does a hospital corpsman do?
So it's pretty broad. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's sort of a nurse. It's not. It is, but it isn't. It's sort of a paramedic or an EMT. It can be, but it's So the Navy provides, and I guess I should say that I spent most of my time with the Marine Corps.
Yeah, that's
before I say this. So
I watched a video just the other day, and it was from Afghanistan, I think, where one of our guys he got hit, but the round went through his shoulder, somehow hit his collarbone, went through his mouth, and the guy kept yelling, "Get me a corpsman!"
Yeah, so that's
where the Army calls them medics.
Yeah, Army call them medics, and so it's evolved over the years. I've learned a lot over the last couple of years with Tatum as he's sort of navigated through trying to chase that dream down. But you know, when I did it, I didn't have a clue. They said, "Hey, we need Navy corpsmen," and you know, I was like, "Hey, sign me up. You know, I'm ready to go do something." But so a Navy corpsman, you know, you go to boot camp, you go to Navy Corps school, you learn a lot about the medical side of things, a lot of terminology. You learn everything from how to suture to how to pack wounds to how to, you know, get an IV started, you know, and then you can specialize in just about any area of the medical field, just like you could, you know, out here in the civilian world. But they come around and they said, "Hey, we need corpsmen who want to go serve with the Marine Corps." And, you know, I mean, I think everybody has this opinion. I'm not sure, but, you know, when you think about the military, you know, you think about, oh, the Navy does these cool things, the Army does these cool things, and the Marine Corps they're just warriors. You know, I mean, that's all they do is train and go fight in wars and stuff like that. And, you know, defend freedom and all those awesome things that you know, words that you can use to get yourself pumped up. But I said, yeah, man, that's exactly what I want to do. So I signed up for that school, went to Camp Lejeune down in North Carolina and went through training there during Y2K.
You didn't drink the water, did you?
Well, apparently I was there too late for the settlement that's coming.
Oh my goodness.
Cause that's been an interesting thing you know, we just finished up with the 3M, you know, whatever it is, you know,
the hearing protection
lawsuit settlement. Yeah. But, was down there during Y2K. So it was a crazy time because, you said something before we came on about, you know, you sometimes feel like you've lived like 5 different lives. And a little side project I've been doing here lately is I'm taking, you know, 5-year increments of my life from 0 to 5 and all the way up to now I'm 41, and just writing down some things like, what did I do during this time? And it's kind of a fun thing I'm doing. I think everybody should do, because you're like, oh wow, wait a minute. You know, I accomplished a lot during that 5 years. And then you're like, hey, what was I doing during this 5 years? You know, I didn't get much done, but
that's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool thing. But where was I at? So yeah, it's hard to answer what a Navy corpsman is. They do a lot of things. I was fortunate enough to serve with the Marine Corps, deployed with the Marine Corps. My favorite way to sort of capture what that was like for me was just that, you know, I got once in my life, I got to serve with the most amazing teammates you could ever possibly imagine being around. The kind of guys that just, you know, if you think about them, like just now thinking about them, I just felt motivation, you know, instantly.
Wow.
Just felt a little bit of juice. And, you know, I'm thankful for that time. I miss it, you know, every day. But, another thing we talked about, there was that little voice in there saying, hey, come back home.
Yeah.
You know, hey, come back. You know, where you at? What are you doing out there? We need you here. And my last duty station, we were off in, at Camp Pendleton and out in between LA and San Diego, and at a little town called Oceanside. And it's just an awesome place where it's 72 degrees every day and everybody's motivated and working out all the time and, you know, just living life, doing great things. And, you know, I said, hey, you know, Tudor, we should go back home. And, she was, I don't want to say she was surprised by that, because our plan was kind of, we met early. We've been married for 26 years. We have 3 kids. I guess I probably skipped that part about telling about myself, but she's a very important part of my life. And, probably the thing, that I'm the most proud of, you know, is my relationship with her. And I had to go to her and say, hey, we need to go back home. And she said, I thought you loved this. And I said, I love every second of this. I love this. I love the opportunities to deploy. You know, you have good and bad there too, just like I mentioned with law enforcement, but the good outweighs the bad, or it did for us. And so I was almost sort of fighting against myself too, you know, but eventually convinced her, you know, hey, we need to go back home. And so we did 5 years on active duty, got out, we came back home and ended up doing 3 more years of a like an inactive reserve type of a role. And then got out and, you know, immediately started going to school at UAFS. Our plan was, hey, let's do 5 years, get that GI Bill, get that discipline and that training and learn some things. And at that time, I think it's so long ago, but I think my mindset was I want to do something in the medical field. So, get those skills and continue that on or maybe I'll be where I want to be when I get out. But started going to school at UAFS, and, one of the questions I think you're going to get to, I'm just going to go ahead and grab it, was one of the people that I met at magazine was Coach Randy Bryan. And, I can't mention him without mentioning other people, Mr. Hammonds, Mr. Michael Hammonds, somebody I still care about and love to this day. Miss Disney, Miss Riddle, Miss Holt. I mean, there were so many people there that honestly changed my life. And so I'll try not to go back where I did earlier, but I mean, I often wonder what would it have been like for me if I had just kept on keeping on, had not met those people that would say things to me like, hey, you're better than this. Me and Coach Bryan, we get along so famously these days, and I always say my first encounter with him wasn't the most positive one. Mm-hmm. It wasn't bad. I was in the basketball gym and pushed the old bleachers up, and I'm up there doing backflips off the bleachers, showing all my friends what I can do. And he comes over and he's like, hey, it's not a good idea. Don't do that. You get hurt. School might get in trouble. Don't do that in here. Mm-hmm. So I wait for him to slip off, and I'm like, he's gone. Do a couple more. He comes back. He says, hey, don't do that again. I was like, oh, this guy's serious, and then my next encounter with him was just talking in class, and he pulls me out and he says, hey, I said, we're not going to do that. So we just march up to the principal's office. He's going to paddle me, for talking in class because I'd already been warned. And again, I'm thinking this guy's like, he's kind of, he's about it. He's fierce. He's serious, mm-hmm. And, didn't have a witness, didn't have a principal, didn't have another teacher. And he said, hey, you're getting a theme. And I said, okay, you made a believer out of me now. I'm going to be a good kid. No more talking, no more backflips. But looking back, what it really did was, he was holding me accountable, and, he'd seen something in me and decided he should hold me accountable. And, I think back to meeting him as a big turning point in my life to showing me. I had people around me that cared about me. I grew up, spent a lot of time with my grandparents. They, had a great relationship with them. Had a good relationship with my mom. She was, busy doing things, and kind of never knew my dad. That's kind of the vague backstory. So having somebody like Coach Bryan come in and say, hey, you're better than these kind of things. Let's get you in sports. Let's get you working out. Let's get you, doing good in the classroom. Kind of set me on the right path. So
sure.
Reel me back in. Tell me how I got there.
Yeah, I really don't know.
I told you. I said, watch me now. I'll take off on a rabbit trail on you.
So what accomplishments are you most proud of? I know you said you're doing this project every 5 years. What are some of those accomplishments you have, and what are some that you're most proud of? There's
a lot in there. I think early on in life, I found some success athletically and just really appreciated that time. Growing up really poor and just, without a lot of things, you get involved in sports, and if you put in the work, you look around and you're like, oh, okay, I'm on your level on this. And then you put in a little more work and you're like, oh, I'm a little better than you now. And you start to realize how life works. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm proud of that and the things that I was able to accomplish there at the school. Certainly, very proud of my military service. Something that I'm thankful for. I don't regret getting out. I know I took you on that little journey with me earlier, through the military, but I don't regret getting out. But, also there's times that I wish I could have done a little more time. 5 years almost wasn't enough for me, but so proud of that. But, and then, even getting out, I'm happy, always been happy to be back home, involved in my community, always doing things, trying to do things that, sort of help other people. Usually I find myself kind of trying to do for kids what Coach Bryan, Mr. Hammonds, those guys did to me. That's why, we started up a Watchdogs program at the school recently, which was, something that just, the elementary principal reached out and said, hey, I know about this program. I'm looking for some folks to help out, head it up, help out whatever you can do. And that whole thing is about trying to get dads involved, in the youth of our community's lives. Not necessarily dads involved with their own kids. That's great too. But also, if we can get a dad down here at the school and there's a kid maybe doesn't have a dad, doesn't have a grandpa, doesn't have an uncle, somebody that they can really kind of look to. to learn from, and that can be a positive role model and example and things. And so we started that program. It's similar to what I think of as Little League coaches. You'd like for your Little League coaches to serve that role, but not all kids want to play sports. Not all kids want to play football, basketball, whatever it is. So the Watchdog dads kind of give them another way to get out there and get involved in kids' lives. So that's something that's very new, but something I'm very proud of. I set my expectations really low. I was thinking, hey, it's, we are in magazine. We get 12, 15 dads down here. That's going to be really, really awesome. And Mr. H, our elementary principal, he agreed. And then we showed up on pizza night, which was sort of where we were going to deliver the message of what it's about and, what we want to do with it. And, we had 60, 70 people show up. We had 140 or 150 people call. And so he was telling me, hey, I bought like 1 million pizzas, and kind of getting ready for this. And I was just blown away. But, I knew we wouldn't get everybody show up that called, but having, 65, 68, something like that, may have even been 70 people show up was just incredible, and told me that there are people out there that want to help, want to get involved, want to do things. And so, there's a ton of other things like that, with Little League, with the Logan County Deputy Association. We do things, we spend time all year raising money to do Shop with a Cop and things like that. I'm really proud of that. But as I mentioned before, man, there's nothing I'm more proud of than my family. My wife and I have been married for 26 years, and I know how fortunate we are just, from being 41 years old and seeing how things go and how the world works and how things are. I'm just really thankful that she puts up with me like she does. And, my oldest son, sort of the story I like to tell about Brendan is, we moved back home. Brendan's 5 years old, and everybody's like, hey, Josh, you tutor, you guys did all these things here, and like, he's going to be like this really good athlete. He's going to do all these things. And I was like, it never really was that important to me. And I can't explain why, but, that never really took off for him. But what did take off was the academic side of things.
Sure.
He was incredible in the classroom. I think he scored a 33, 34 on his ACT.
Wow.
Went to Arkansas State on a full academic scholarship. Still costs you some money out there if you're listening. If your kid goes on a full academic scholarship, you're still going to be spending a little money. But I think he got $75,000 to go to school down there. So something I always throw out there for people to hear, because that's so much money just for doing a good job in the classroom. And so he went down there and got a nursing degree. He's done a couple of different things with it. He's traveling right now. Lives in Memphis, but he's actually currently living in Oklahoma City because he's working over there. And, he calls me up last year and he's like, hey, he went to Arkansas State because he wanted to be a nurse, anesthetist. You guys will have to help me out with that. CRNA is what I usually say. That's kind of, I think, the abbreviation for the nurse side of anesthesia.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But, he goes down there for that because they have a really good program, for that down there. And I think the plan was you become a nurse, you get out, you work for a year in critical care, and then you can come back to school and you do another year and you get what you need for that CRNA program. And then you just go out and make a ton of money and life's great. But what often happens, he gets his nursing degree, he gets out there, he's like, I don't know, I may go back, I may not. So he calls me up one day and says, hey, I'm going back to school. And I said, all right. So I think, okay, I know what you're doing. He says, no, I'm going back for it's like a geology degree, a geoscience type thing. And I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? And he's like, well, Memphis has really bad water, and I want to do something about it. And so I tell people all that when they ask me about Brendan, just to say I'm just really proud of him, because he's out there. It'd be really cool if he was here doing great things, and maybe someday, we can build this place into something that he can come back to and find work and be happy. But, right now he's just out in the world doing great things. And so I just couldn't be any more proud of him, than I am. Tatum, my youngest son, kind of equally as proud of him. Different life, he's living so far. As I said, he's, really trying to figure out, am I going to be able to get in the Navy and do this Navy Corpsman thing? He sort of wants to go a different route with it than I did, still something that's very much on his mind that hasn't worked out yet. But he's out there fairly recently married, little baby, so I have this beautiful little granddaughter that I get to learn all about how to be a grandpa with. And,
so you have one grandchild?
Yeah, one grandchild, Oakley. She's 1 year old. She's closing in on 2, you know, so she's at that age where she's talking, she's walking, she's got a personality and an attitude. And I mentioned Tabry to you. I don't remember if we were on the air yet or not, but you know, she sort of snuck in. Tatum was 10 years old when Tabry come along, and I'd always kind of joke around like, hey, this must be what it's like to be a grandpa, because I didn't think I was going to have to worry about this again or change diapers or whatever. And now we've got Tabry. So she kind of helped me get ready for Oakley. Yeah. You know, and so, but, you know, just to kind of round out the family thing, you know, Tabry's, you know, 9 years old and still kind of figuring her out. She's still kind of figuring, you know, herself out. And, you know, I have no idea if she's going to be more of the athletic type like Tatum was or, you know, more of the academic side like Brennan was, or maybe a combination, but it's a cool journey to be on, you know, to see.
Children are amazing. And whenever I talk to people now, I realize that I've been a father for most of my life now. And you were talking about reflecting on your life. I find that's probably my most important job is being a father. And it took me a while to really realize that. You know, when you're young and you're like I was when you first have children, it's just like, oh, that's what we do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just another responsibility. Not that I think I did a terrible job or anything like that, but now that I'm a little older, I realize how important it is. I realize how these roles that we have, you know, you're talking about the Watchdog Program with the fathers involved. I think a lot of the issues that we're having, you know, as a nation are a direct reflection of the destruction of the family unit.
Yeah.
In a society.
There's no question. I mean, if anybody that's listening to this takes anything from this, is try to find a way to get involved in that capacity. I can't tell you how many times in my life, whether it be just as a dad or as a little league coach or as a cop or as somebody, you know, with a military background, and have somebody come to me that thinks to themselves, oh, you know, Josh may know something about this. And it breaks your heart when they say, hey, you know, can you reach out and talk to my son or my grandson? He doesn't have anybody. There's nobody else to do it. You know, you appreciate compliments, you know, oh, you're doing a great job with your kids, you know, and you hear that from their teachers or their, you know, your friends and family or coworkers or whatever, and you can appreciate that. But it's when you really, you know, start to break all that down and you start to think, yeah, but, you know, if I'm doing such a great job with my own, you know, why not do more and try to help out?
Sure.
You know, try to be something for somebody. I mean, you never know what some kid out there needs. Maybe they need a coach. Maybe they need somebody to hold them accountable. Maybe they are thinking about the military and they're wanting to talk about it, but they just don't have anybody to talk to. And you can say all day that, and there's some truth to this. We're living in a time where anything you want to know, all you got to do is get on the internet and go find it. You know, you can learn how to do anything. You can teach yourself anything. You know, you can learn about anything, but there's something about having somebody right there whenever you have that failure and they say, hey, try it again. Like, I believe in you.
Right.
You know, that part of it is missing if you don't have that human, you know, element, that one-on-one right there. And that's what Mr. Beeson, you know, telling the story about the kid, you know, and the blessing box. And, you know, just kind of sort of ties that in. I mean, sometimes you get busy going about your day-to-day life and you don't look around and realize that, hey, we've got hungry kids out here, or hey, we've got kids that, you know, have this need. You don't realize that until you show up and you do. And so anyways, not to get too sidetracked, but there's a lot more that we can do. We're doing great things. I sort of got sidetracked earlier. There's so many good things going on in all of Logan County. There's a ton of good things going on in Booneville and Magazine, but there's a lot more that we can do, especially if we just learn from each other and talk about what these things are. And, you know, hey, you know, just to drive that point home a little further. I mean, when I first got involved in law enforcement, you know, which again, something I never thought I would ever do. Something that was said to me early on by Kevin Kimbrell was, he said, hey, you know, you live your life out here, and until you get involved in, you know, in law enforcement or something very similar, you don't realize there's a whole other side to Booneville or Magazine or Sugar Grove. There's a whole other world going on. You don't really notice it until you stop and really, you know, look with that critical eye and you say, oh, you know, there's this problem, there's that problem, there's, you know, whatever. And I understood what he meant, but I didn't fully take that in until I started doing it. And you pull up at Walmart with your family and you see somebody and you know their backstory and you're like, man, yeah, that's what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a way for you to get involved with anything, Watchdog Dads, some program, some group in Booneville, some, you know, wherever you live, do it. Somebody out there needs you and you could change their life.
And that goes back to these roles. I'm not saying that the woman's role, we're not saying anything to speak against that, because that is
absolutely
as just as crucial. But I think what the issue is when you are void of one or the other, because us as human beings are designed to have both.
Yeah.
And if like you said, you can learn anything on the internet, but it's only a one-way street. You're only going to get in what you search for. You're only going to get out. You can't have a virtual dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that virtual dad, like you said, is not going to hold you accountable, because if you had that, you had discipline, then you wouldn't need it. It's kind
exactly.
of,
yeah.
You've got to have somebody as that role model to be in your psyche, to be part of you. Because when you're a child, and I tell this to people that, you know, I've had friends that went through divorce or whatever, and, you know, you overhear them and they're talking bad about the other spouse. I'm like, hey, don't do that. He's like, don't get involved with my life. I'm like, I'm not. I'm looking out for your kid.
Yeah.
I said, you're not hurting your spouse by doing that. You're hurting the child, because at that age, their psyche, there is no me. There is only you and your wife. That's their psyche.
That's right. And that's a hard thing to understand. It's a hard thing for that person to see. You know, so that's just another way that you can kind of give back to pull that guy aside and say, hey, that's another thing you see in Little League a lot as well. You know, I'll have to bring them because they won't show up on time, or they won't, you know, just the little things like that you see that hurts the kid.
Sure.
It's an unfortunate thing, but, you know, it also, when I kind of get to feeling down about it, also, you know, remember that there's a ton of us that sort of came up that way, and you know, in some ways, especially if you can get just a little bit of help from somebody here or there, it can make you stronger, and, you know, you can overcome those kind of things and be better for it. Another thing I always think about is, you know, how do I give my kids, you know, what I had growing up that caused me to be, you know, like the better parts of me.
Mm-hmm.
How did I get that way? And I think, well, it's because of this and this and this. And how do I give that to my kids without forcing them to live that life?
Sure.
You know, and there's really no way to do that, specifically, but I think you can share and you can talk. And then as they get older, you know, they reach ages where you can talk about different things and share different things. And, you know, going back to what you said about being a parent, I think Tatum said something that really, you know, hit me hard recently. And somebody was talking to him about, you know, he, you know, I left out a lot of his accomplishments, and he was one of those kids that kind of come along, fit in, did well, had just a tremendous, athletic career at Magazine. And he was a state champion, state MVP as a sophomore, which is unheard of. And, you know, things like that we're really proud of. And he did really well in the classroom. You know, he was, you know, an all-A student.
Hang on. You said he was a state MVP as a sophomore?
Tatum we won a state championship at the, in track when he was a sophomore, and he ended up being the high point scorer of the meet.
Oh, wow.
So he's one of three. We actually have three at our school athletes who were a state champion and also the MVP of that game. Ryan Chambers in football, and Katie Carter, which is now Katie Chambers, in track and field too. So, you know, but there's a ton of things that I could talk about him on the athletic side of things, but it was never really either one of our, you know, goals for him. You know, it wasn't like, hey, we're going to be in the NFL. You know, it was like, hey, you're going to learn things from this. You're going to have successes and failures, and you're going to learn from this, and it's going to set you up for later in life. But to get to the point of my story, somebody was talking to him, and where my mind was, you know, was just, he's lived this life where, I hope it wasn't too soft, like where just all these things went well for him. You know, he's just always success after success after success. And this Navy thing, you know, we haven't really touched on it in enough of a way to really let people know, like, or let you know, like, how hard it's been on him. You know, it's just something from the time he was 5 years old, he was drawing this up on posters and hanging around the house that this is what he was going to do. And then, he hasn't got there yet, and he was planning on leaving as soon as he got out of, high school and this and that and the other. So somebody asked him about that. And he explained everything, and he told him where he was at. He wasn't giving up, and he's just out there doing life at this point and trying to stay in shape. And, he's doing some things on the side, like some podcasts and some different things that he's interested in. And he's a big gamer. And then they asked him about his daughter and how hard that's been. And he was like, man, I was born for this. And like that, it just caught me. I was like, you were born for this. Like, if there was one thing that made me feel that, like, and certainly I'm not trying to take any credit for that, but just I felt a success as a father.
Right.
In that moment when he said, well, man, I was born for this. And, so just, told my wife right away, I wrote it down in my journal, I was just one of those things that I thought, that's what I was after. And then, you talked about how, especially when you're fortunate enough to become a parent, early in life, when you're young and full of energy and you can do anything in the backyard, you can hit balls all day, you can run with them, you can do everything. I always tell Brendan, like, you made some sacrifices so that I could be better for Tatum. You know what I mean? And I was much better for Tatum than I was for Brendan. And I feel even better for Tabry than I was for Tatum, because I just have more patience and more understanding, and just things happen, and I'm not so caught up in my own world that I can't, pull out of it and say, oh, this is an important moment for her and I need to take some time and talk with her. And so, it just, saying this just kind of takes me right back to where I was earlier. If there's anything that any of you guys out there can do to provide that for somebody that doesn't have that opportunity, go do it.
Right.
I mean, because you're going to benefit from it. You're going to, even if it's just that little feeling you get when they graduate from high school, or when they hit a home run, or when they, another thing that happens to me quite often is some of these kids that I coach in Little League are out there doing life right now, and they'll invite me to a wedding, or, they'll reach out and say something to me about something that we did along the way. And it's just, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if you haven't felt that, like, go out there and get involved and do something, and it's better than anything.
Whenever I was very small, I was in elementary school, I remember seeing certain people that were active in the community, and I remember seeing them as almost like heroes.
Yeah.
One I remember, and he probably I've never spoken to him about it. I've never even walked up and spoke to him about other than something that he does in his job now. Bobby Hunt. He was in the military. He came and talked to us, and I was like, that's a real live Army man.
Yeah. Bobby was a deputy when I came on board, and somebody I learned a lot from.
One was Ron Ford. He worked up on the hill, and, I just saw him and I was like, man, people listen to that guy when he talks. So you just being active and being involved, you don't know the difference you can make in these kids. They see you, and like, I've never said anything like that to Bobby. Like, hey man, you were a hero to me when I was little. Right. But that just shows how important it is. I have one question. I know you said and I don't want to keep you much longer. I know you have a full day ahead of you, but what do you do on the personal development side? I know you spoke that you journal, and you've got some reflection exercises.
Yeah, just for me, you mean?
Yeah, personal development.
There's a lot of things, and I fail every day at these things. I get asked this question quite a bit, and a lot of times when I answer this question, I say, well, I'm not really doing that anymore, but it served me well for 10 years or so. But, journaling, I'm not a writer. I've never in my life was a big reader until just a few years ago. And now I'm reading like every autobiography I can get my hands on from anybody that I have any kind of respect or appreciation for. And, so I'm doing a lot of reading, try to read a little bit every day, fail at that all the time. In the little bit of spare time that I do have, and sometimes I have to force this, I really like lifting weights. Sometimes, that's noticeable. Sometimes it's not. But it's a place where I can go and just kind of get my thoughts in order, and just kind of, when you're somebody that, and I think this is a lot of people, when you're constantly around people, if you can find some time to just get off to the side by yourself alone, that's really the only time you can shut everything off. And you kind of get, kind of like we've done a couple times here, you just kind of get lost. You start thinking, and you start brainstorming, and
get that flow going.
You might solve a problem, and you don't even realize it. Earlier today, something I've really been wanting to do that just kind of got, just recently got back going, was just getting out and going to the track, so earlier today I went to the track, walked a couple miles, put the headphones on. Don't even remember what I listened to because I was just in my head thinking about things and, what I want to get accomplished this week. But I think when it comes to trying to be productive, the most important thing that at least that I do that works for me is reflect a little bit at the end of the day on, hey, what did we get done today? And, always try to say we, that way you're thinking about the whole team. Mm-hmm. And then when you wake up in the morning, it's like, hey, I've got to make sure I take some time to sort of prioritize everything to just, and the way I do that is just with a list, with pen and paper, just write down what do I have to get done today? What would it be really nice if I got this done today? And then, is there anything else that I want to throw on there? And there's nothing more satisfying than checking those things off the box. So it just sort of drives you to go. And then that and something that I fell on a lot, if you can ever get your diet going, if you can put those things together with a good strong diet, I think you could probably accomplish anything you wanted to, because then you got your health physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm. I would probably forget one shoe if my wife wasn't getting up in the morning. She gets all the kids ready, and we're fortunate enough now that she stays at home and takes care of the home and the kids and gets them off to school and gets the house squared away. Or how important is your wife in your goals and aspirations? And what do you feel is the role that a wife plays in for a mayor in a town like Magazine?
There's times that I said I'm doing this little project, looking at 5-year increments of my life, and there's some things that I'm writing down that I don't really think about from day to day that I do feel like are accomplishments. And I'm like, hey, I did a lot during that 5 years, but I can always say that, she plays a pivotal role in that. I mean, just having that support, having somebody that is there every single day. As I said, we've been married for 26 years. If she wasn't around, I probably couldn't function either, so, she plays a tremendous role. And I think with the mayor, she will also play a pretty important role. One of the things that my wife has to deal with is when I get home, sometimes I'm fortunate enough to, I'm be in a position where I can sort of balance my schedule out. If I work until 6 or 8 today, then maybe I can get off a little early tomorrow and, on a shift where I have to be there. But what I do have is there's a lot of people that depend on me, whether that's just making decisions or, making things happen. And so, there's times I might not get home until 8. Well, she understands that. Some of the guys that I work with, they're like, oh man, this is my wife's not going to be happy about this. I never have to worry about that. Even when she's not happy about it, we can talk about it. And, one of the things she says to me a lot is, why do you have to do it? Is there not anybody else that can do it this time? Or, hey, you did that the last 17 times, right? Like somebody else can do it. And she'll say stuff like that, but it's more in just kind of the way our relationship is. She'll jab at me, I'll jab at her a little bit, but man, she's just crucial. I'm so thankful for her. And there are no words for me to say on this podcast or in front of her to let her know how important she is to me. I mean, I'm so thankful that I met her. I'm thankful to have, like I said, I got lucky and my parents moved, my mom moved, and I end up in Magazine and I meet these people. I met her there.
So you're high school sweethearts?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Met her there and, I said, hey, we're going to join the Navy. And she was like, okay. She was, I didn't say anything about this, but, one of the hardest things that I've ever been through, personally was being deployed and Tatum was born. And, when I was growing up without a dad, I think this is kind of I don't know how this is going to sound, and I haven't shared this with a lot of people, but I can remember being very, very young. I did say this at the Watchdog thing and thinking, I'm going to be the best dad there's ever been, because I was just naive and I just thought you could just be the best dad if you wanted to be, I guess. And so I was probably 8, 9 years old thinking that, something like that. And so one of the things I remember thinking was, I'm just always going to be there. And so even though you're deployed, you're in a war zone, crazy things are happening and, you're proud of that and you're dealing with all those emotions and everything. When you realize, hey, my son's going to be born while I'm over here, it breaks your heart. You're like, oh my, I'm not going to be there. It doesn't matter that circumstances are keeping me from, like, I said I was going to be there and I'm not going to be there. And, that was something that, just really, I don't know, it just had a major effect on me. And it's something I think about often. If I do have a failure, now I think, hey, just got to get back on track. Eventually I processed, hey, I'm not going to be able to be there. And it went to, well, I just hope everything goes good. I hope he's healthy. I hope, you know, the delivery goes good, all those kinds of things. And then that gave me a little bit of peace in, you know, I guess worrying about not being there or what he would think later in life, knowing that I wasn't there or whatever. How did we get here? Help me, Brian.
I don't know. I'm just listening. I'm taking it all in, man.
It's so funny.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on and that you thought you would want to bring up before we go?
You know, I hadn't thought about this beforehand, but I think earlier today I noticed that somebody said, hey, you know, you need to make a Facebook page for the mayor thing, because you've got to keep that life separate from your law enforcement life, which, you know, I probably left this out. I think that's going to be, you know, tough to do, but something I think I can do. But I hit 400 likes on the page, and I haven't really done anything to, you know, sort of push people to like the page. So I guess, you know, if there's anything I want to end with, but from that to just being around town and having person after person after person come to me and say, hey, this makes sense. Thank you. I appreciate you for doing this. Hey, I know you probably don't have time for this, but this is important. I, you know, just want to thank everybody. Thanks for following the page. Thanks for reaching out. You know, I've had people come by my house telling me about their problems. I appreciate that too. Kind of like to know, you know, what we are, you know, what we do need to do as a city or as leadership there. And, so I'm just thankful at this point. You know, I know it's not all going to be peaches and cream.
Right.
And I know that you'll never be able to make everybody happy and things like that, but certainly will, you know, the one thing that I will promise and can promise is that, you know, you're going to get the best effort you possibly can get from me. You know, as I said, you come to my house at 7:00 because you have a problem, you're welcome. I mean, we do that weekly now. I won't say every day, but we do that weekly now. Hey, got a problem with this, got a problem with that, you know, so, I'm just thankful to live in a place where people see that in me and, you know, have kind of pushed me, or at least made me feel like they want me to do this. And, you know, you just want to thank everybody.
That's what leadership looks like.
That's right. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Josh.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.